Welcome back to my channel, guys. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a simple wrap dress. This is freehand method and it's very simple. Like, it's very beginners friendly, so if you're a beginner you may want to watch this because I'm not going to be using any pattern. We'll cut directly on the fabric. So let's get started. I already cut out the fabric I'm using for my back. You're going to be cutting the back first. Yes, I folded it into two, so we use the back and cut the front. So first, I'm going to take my full length measurement. All right, I want my full length is going to be 36 inches, and then I added 2 inches to it to make it 38. 2 inches for the seam allowance. So my full length in total plus seam allowance is 38 inches. So I'm just going to mark my starting point from there. I'm starting there because the down part of this fabric has a border. It has a nice border, so I want to be using that down part. As you can see that the flower is more on the downside, that is why I started from there. So I'm going to take my shoulder measurement. So my shoulder is 14 inches divided by 2 is 7, so I marked 7.5. The 0.5, that is a half inch, is for seam allowance. Then I'm going to mark my measurements, my armhole or my bust. Okay, so my armhole is 8 inches, that is my bust line. Then my waist 16 inches, and then my hip is 9 inches from my waist. So 9 inches there. I'm going to take my circumferences. All right, so what I want to do now is to bring down my shoulder to my bust line. That is the 7.5 inches. I'm going to mark it there. This is to enable me draw my armhole line or armhole curve correctly. All right, so I'm just going to rule a straight line there. Then I'm going to take my circumference. So my bust divided by 4 plus 1.5. All right, 1.5 is seam allowance, so you divide your bust by 4 and you add your seam allowance. Then my waist divided by 4 plus my seam allowance. The same thing for my hip, divided by 4 plus 1.5 seam allowance. All right, so I'm going to connect it like this. Connect my bust line to my waist to my hip, and then I'm going to bring this down straight. Okay, we're not doing any pencil hem, it's just going to be straight. So whatever I have on my hip, that whatever measurement I have on my hip, I'm going to bring it down to my hem and just draw a straight line because it's just going to be straight. Okay, all right, so let me mark my armhole curve now. You know, this we are doing freehands. I'm not using any pattern for this, so we're doing just freehand. So I've curved my armhole. The next I'm going to do is to take my neck width and my neck depth. All right, so the neck width I'm going to do is 3.5. all right, I'm going to do a neck width of 3.5. Of course, the neck width for the front and back is supposed to be the same, so 3.5 is what I'm going to do, so that by the time I hem, I'm going to get like 4. So 3.5 for the neck width. Remember, we are cutting the back. Then for the depth, I'm going to do 1.5. Then I'm going to connect it with a curve. Okay, then I'm going to take my shoulder slant of 1 inch. Then I'll connect it like this, and then I'm going to add half inch allowance on my shoulder. That is half inch joining or seam allowance on my shoulder. All right, straight to the point. Now it's time to cut. I'm going to cut this out. So guys, take this opportunity please and click the like button or click the subscribe button if you're not yet subscribed to my channel. Thank you so much. So now the back is ready. So I'm just going to use this to cut the front. All right. So I'm going to place fold another piece of fabric like I just did. It's on fold as you can see, and I'm going to place the bag that we've already cut on it. All right, I'll place it like this. Make sure the hem matches. Okay, but the thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to place it 5 inches away from the midpoint. That's from the folded area of the front that we're about to cut. It's going to be 5 inches away. All right, this is to create room for the overlap. You know, a wrap dress overlaps, so that 5 inches is to make room for the overlap, to create the overlap. All right, so make sure that on the folded area it is 5 inches away from the folded area. That is, the back is 5 inches away from the folded area of the front. So I measured everything as you can see, and everything is 5 inches. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mark out that midpoint. That is the 5 inches that I measured. I'm going to use the bag that I placed on it as a guide and just mark it out with a chalk. So I'll just use my ruler and complete the marking. Just measure the 5 inches all the way down to my hem, and then I'm going to use my ruler to connect it with a straight line. This is just to serve as a guide for when I'll be marking out my neck width for the front and the waists. All right, so keep watching. So now I've marked it out. This is the 5 inches mark. All right, so you see it's the exact place. So what I'm going to do next is to mark the neck depth for my front. All right, so I want my front neck depth to be, I was just marking out my starting point for the front, just so that we see what we are doing better. So from that, my starting point, I'm going to measure my neck depth for the front. I want it to be 7 inches long. That is the depth of my front is going to be 7 inches. Now you can make yours 8 if you want it very deep. That is, if you want your cleavage to show. You can even make it 6. It depends on what you want. But I'm going to be making mine 7. So I'm going to connect it with a straight line from the width to that point. Remember, we're using the back as a guide, and the width, like I said earlier, for the front and the back should be the same. So I've connected it like this to the 7 inches neck depth. And you remember that a wrap dress usually have a rope. Okay, so I'm going to be marking where I want the rope to be. I want the rope to be on my half length, which is 15 inches, because it kind of gives it a better fit. All right, so your half length should be like 1 inch above your navel, kind of. Yeah, your waist and your half length is not usually the same. The half length is usually above your, a little bit above your navel or on your navel. All right, so I marked 15 inches and I connected it to that point. So that is where my rope is going to be. So now what I want to do now is um here is kind of tricky, not really tricky. You can just do what you want, you can freestyle it. You can actually make your wrap dress curvy on the down part as you wish. You can make it straight. You can just do what you want here. So I'm going to show you an instance of what I'm talking about. All right, so if you're making yours curvy or you're putting a little bit of fancy on it, you're going to measure 2 inches first. This is because you need a space to fix your rope. So let's assume my rope is going to be 2 inches by width. I'm going to measure 2 inches for the space I'm going to be fixing my rope. Then from there, I'm going to mark my style. That is, if you want your wrap dress to have a style on the down part and not just straight. All right, so you can do whatever you want. So assuming you want to do it this way, you mark your 2 inches for where you would fix your rope, because the rope I'm going to be using will be 2 inches by width. So this is what it will look like. That is if you want to mark a style for it, but I won't be doing any of that. I want my wrap, the down part of my wrap, to be just straight so that it is just covered. I really don't want any design or style on the down part. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and use the back as a guide and cut out my front. So now I'm going to be opening the middle of my front, because you know you some fold. I'll be slashing it open because, like I said, I want it to be straight. So I'll slash it open up until I get to the place where my this thing is going to be, my rope. Yeah, my half length, and then I'm going to follow the chalked mark and continue cutting. Okay, then I'm going to place back my back piece and also use it as a guide to cut my shoulder. And that is all, guys. All right, so here is the back that is in front. Here is the back piece, and here is the front piece. The front piece is supposed to be 2 piece. Okay, so this is how it's going to look like. Let me show you. I'm going to open it like this, and then I'll place one. Like I said, it's supposed to overlap. I'll place one on the other, and here is what it should look like. Can you see? So one is overlapping the other, right? So this is what it's going to look like. All right, so I'm just going to go to my sewing machine and fix this up. So here is where the rope is going to be. All right, so assuming you want to create a style, like I said earlier, you can even create it on one piece. That is the one that is supposed to overlap, just like this. So now it's time for sewing. I'll go ahead and I'm going to place the back on this, that is front facing front, and I'm going to join the shoulders first. So I'm going to join the shoulders first. So I'll go back to my machine and join the shoulders, then I'll come back. Okay, I've joined the shoulders, and I also went ahead to hem the neck round all the way down to my hem. I hemmed everything. Yes, and I also ironed it. So I iron as I sew. As a tailor, especially beginner, you're supposed to iron as you sew. It makes your work come out well. I went ahead to trim my armhole, and then it's now to fix my sleeves, I'm going to cut a basic sleeve, but with a little allowance of my hem. All right, because I want to put an elastic. So I'm going to cut my sleeve. The length of my sleeve is 14 inches, including seam allowance. Then my armhole is 8 inches plus 2 inches seam allowance, which is 10 inches. I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to, we're doing freehand, remember, so freehand all the way. I also do the same 10 inches on my hem. Just like I said, I want it to be a little bit free on the hem so that I'll put my elastic. All right, so I'm just going to cut out my sleeve. All right, here's what it looks like. So when I put the elastic on the hem, it's going to kind of shrink like this. I'll cut the second sleeve, and then the next thing is the waistband. All right, so here I cut two strips of long bands measuring 22.5, because it's on fold is going to be about 45 inches long, and the width is 5.5 inches wide. And when it's on fold, when I finally fold it, because I'm going to fold it and stitch on it, then turn it over. So when I fold it, it's going to, and stitch it by half an inch, it's going to now be 2 inches. Remember I said my band is going to be, or my belt is going to be 2 inches by width. So I'm going to stitch on it by half of an inch and turn it inside out. So your belt length depends on what you want. I'm doing mine 45 because I don't want it really long. If you want it really long, you can do more than that, maybe about 50 or 55. So the tip of my belt, I want it to be a little bit fancy or pointy. So I'm just going to cut it like this. Yeah, so I'm going to now stitch on it by half of an inch and turn it inside out, and then I'll be fixing it to my fabric like this. After I must have stitched on it and turned it inside out, I'm going to fix it. Remember where we are fixing it? From there I'm going to stitch on it, and it's going to look like this for one side, and then the other side I'll do the same thing. All right, so I'll go ahead and do this, and then fix my sleeve, and then hem the bottom of the dress, and we'll see how it will look like. I'm going to fix my sleeve and fold my hem by half of an inch or one, and then I'll attach my elastic to it. So I've done all of that, and see how it's looking. So now the next thing is to create a hole on the side seam where the belt is going to pass through. All right, so I'm going to mark 15 inches from my shoulder. Remember I said I wanted my belt to be at my half length for better fit, so I marked 15 inches and I created a hole of about 2 inches, the size of my belt. So that is where I'll be passing my belt, all right, to the back, and then you tie it to the front. So guys, this is the end of the tutorial. Kindly like and subscribe to my channel if you found this helpful, and ask me any questions. Thank you for watching. See you in my next one.